I can't stop now, the welds are working. This week on the Dirthead Shed, we're building an exocage on a Toyota and trying to make it look invisible. Like that, see? Can't see it, didn't happen. We're back in the Dirthead Shed with something a little bit different. Let's get this thing pulled inside and I'll explain what's going on. So I promised a bunch of work leading up to the Unreal Adventure 2025, and this is part of it. This is some of the work I got to get done. This is a Toyota Extra Cab pickup. I guess you would call it a third gen in the 4x4 world. 3-liter V6, 5-speed manual, dual transfer cases, solid axle swap, and I believe it has a Tundra rear axle swapped into it. And guess what it's in here for? Rock sliders and roll cage. This truck is going to go on the Unreal Adventure as the Come Up Winch sponsored vehicle. The guy John Snow, who owns this, was like, hey, can you help me out with the cage? I need to make sure we get through tech inspection. So I was like, yeah, swing it on out. A little quick insight on what an exocage is. It is basically what it sounds like. It's a roll cage, but it's on the external part of the cab. Rather than being inside, it is outside of the cab. It's pretty common in rock crawlers to do this, and it's mainly so that you can wheel hard year after year and keep the body somewhat intact, keep the doors open and closing okay, and most importantly, be able to keep a windshield in it. It's really hard to wheel difficult trails, not smash in the pillars so much that a piece of stock glass won't go back in it. So that's my insight on why you exocage a vehicle. The other reason would be if you're a really tall guy, and I know John is pretty tall, it keeps you from having the cage so close to your head that when you're bouncing around in a mini truck, you don't whack your head on the cage. So I am not a huge exocage fan, but I do believe they have their spot, and I think this is a pretty good place to put one. This truck's going to get wheeled year after year in the Pacific Northwest with tight trees and little Jeep trails. The exocage, if we can do this clean and stylish, will be really cool looking on here, and if all works out well, it'll keep this thing looking this good for quite a while. I just have to make sure it doesn't look like I just welded a jungle gym to the outside of it, because that is not the goal. All right, let's get busy. I have a few steps I have to do before we can even get to the exocage part. Jeez, those are heavy. Here we go. First part of doing an exocage is having something for the cage to land on, and a good set of rock sliders is kind of the way to make that happen. These are sliders that I think are from Marlin Crawler. They're either Marlin or Trail Gear. I believe these are Marlin. So these will end up getting welded to the frame and then coming out, and this section's gonna stick out past the body a little bit. So if all goes well, I can land the roll cage on some tubes that are already here, or if I have to add one in for the cage to land to, that's okay. That's better. There we go. After like 15 minutes of scrubbing with Scotch-Brite, I used mineral spirits this time because I was out of WD-40. But got this one cleaned up. I got to finish up the other one. And then once those things are both looking good and not all rusty anymore, we can fit them up to the truck and then start figuring out all the little stanchions that are going to go to the frame. And that'll give us our like base starting point for this whole project. I was over here cleaning the frame up just using a hamburger pad. One of those like paint stripping pads. These things work really good. And I got to this. This is like an old mount for the original transmission cross member. That thing's probably going to be right where I want to drop a tube for the rock slider. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. Just sort of scarf off the weld with the torch. And then we will grind this thing up, finish cleaning the frame, and then we've got clean rock sliders now. I sanded all that rust off of those things, and now we got clean frame rails to work with. So we're getting close to actually getting work done. I guess it's all part of the job. Come on. Woo-wee. These frames are pretty thin, so you don't want to get too aggressive with the torch. Haha! It's the next morning in the shop, and I've been kind of messing around with this rock slider. I wanted to show you this technique that I just kind of came up with in order to hold this thing in the right location. Check this out. I had been messing around with these tall jack stands and cutting up paint sticks and like shimming the sliders up into place, and then I was like, dang it, I want these right up against the pinch weld on the body anyways, so I went and grabbed some C-clamp vice grips and then an old shock tab, and I was able to like get this thing, adjust the shock tab up and then clamp it on, and now the thing is held in place. And I don't have these big bulky jack stands here. I do have this outer one to get my like rotation right on the slider, because they don't just sit flat. They like touch there and then they roll up quite a bit. But kind of a cool little trick. Figured I'd show you. The vice grip with the shock tab is kind of a cool trick. I'm probably going to go ahead and just tack weld this on here real quick, and that way they stay totally put for the other side. But I'll make sure I tack it in a spot that if I want to pull the tab off of there and reuse them like normal C-clamps, I can do that. I'm going to go put these big heavy jack stands away, and then we will keep moving on this project. The frame is definitely tapered a little bit. That's like 5 1/4. Yeah, that's probably pretty close. I could probably do 2, 1, 2 at 5 1/4 and be safe. And what I'll probably actually do is do them at 5 1/8, because I have a little fish plate or a strengthening plate to add to the frame so that it's not just this flimsy like 10 gauge. So let's go 4 at 5 1/8. That's a good starting point. That's a good starting point. Here are the tubes that come with the rock slider kit. And these are all just kind of a universal kit, and you shorten them up as needed. I'm going to end up using this Rogue Fab tubing notcher for doing these straight cuts. I've got an 1 3/4 deep saw, hole saw in here, and these have kind of like finer teeth than a normal hole saw would have. So it's my first time using them. They have like a longer reach, so they can cut through tubing when it's at an angle pretty easily, and then the finer teeth on it should help with cutting clean and not like jumping around as much. So I'm going to chop up and make 4 of these at 5 1/8 long from the inside of the notch to where it'll hit the frame. Kind of getting my groove on. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of finish prepping these with the ameribrade. This is all just the start of a whole lot of work right here. These are turning out good. I'll sand them just a little bit more. I'm going to end up MIG welding this. So the fitment on those edges, I actually want a little bit of a void so that the MIG weld doesn't just sit super high on top of it. But getting close, we're getting there. This is cool. Check it out. I've got a couple of these standoffs welded good to the slider, but just barely tacked to the frame. And I'm using the 1/4 inch plate at the frame, so that'll kind of help distribute the load a little bit better. I think I am good to, I want to pop the clamps off of here and then move to the other side and see if I can't get the other side to this stage real quick. Let's see how it does. Please don't move on me. I kind of want to get a third one on here, but at the same time, I kind of want to go and get the other side to match this one. Ah, sweet. Okay, let's go get to the other side of the truck and try and get it to this stage And once I'm to there, then I'll feel a little better. I'm just, this like beginning stages of just getting things in the right place is super, it's super challenging because you kind of have to lay out like the whole game plan for the whole vehicle all at this point in time. And it gets a little stressful, but we'll get it all figured out. I'm gonna go to the other side. We'll clamp the other sliders up with these tools. It should work to get us close, and then we'll just use a third jack stand just like that and see how it all works out. I got the passenger side to match the driver's side. We've got a few stanchions in place, and now it's time to start figuring out parts of this exocage. I think what I'm going to start with is another tube that goes from here to here, and that's going to give us a spot to land for that tube that comes up around the back side of the cab here. So I'm gonna go notch that up, and then we'll get back here and start figuring out what the next steps are. Oh boy. Almost through. Sweet. I'm usually not a big fan of the tube notcher, but this thing is working great for this job. Clean. Here's that tube that I notched. I was able to use the tube notcher and get the angle on this side because the slider has like a little bit of a kick out there. So I'm just gonna kind of line it up on my marks that I want to hit. I get one tack in kind of a hard to reach spot. Now I can kind of get after it. I'm gonna pull these sliders off and do all my finish welding, but I kind of want to get as much done while it's in place as possible. Part of it is just because I haven't been doing much of this kind of work lately, and I just need to practice and brush up on all my skills. All right, now we got a spot for a vertical tube to land there. Boom, and then we'll continue that on over to that leaf spring mount and in the frame there. It's Thursday morning. I stayed kind of late last night. I actually got the front fenders pulled off of this thing. That way we have a good starting point for today. I want to have part of this exocage go behind the front fender so it doesn't have all this quite so much tubing sitting outside. So I feel like we've got the sliders in place. They're sort of tacked in. It would be nice to maybe finish those a little bit more, and then we can get going on the cage and figure out like the style of this thing. I haven't bent tubing a whole lot lately, so I'm going to be a little bit rusty, but I think we can make this thing cool. I know we're supposed to be working on the cage part, but I want to keep getting these sliders tied in as best I can. This is going to be the forward-most kicker. Hang on, let me sand this a little more. This is the stock body mount bracket gusset. And I'm just kind of shaping it so that I can fit this tube up against it really tight. Gosh, that's gonna work awesome. This ties in up here where this has like an overlapping like gusset plate over the whole front section of the frame. So the tube's gonna tie into that like 1/4 inch plate. I'll be able to weld it along here so that it's kind of using this stock body mount as a gusset, and then come over here and it should weld in like full circle to the rock slider. It's going to be a really strong point. it needs to be, because this is where the front of the roll cage is really tying into. I'm going to go ahead and weld it all the way to the slider, but not weld it all the way on the frame, because I do want to be able to pop these sliders off to finish weld a bunch of the stuff that I can't get at, and then we'll put the whole thing back on the truck and weld it up solid in place. Check that funky notch out. And boom. It fits right in there. That should be pretty cool. I'll be able to like get a good weld on a bunch of this like heavy 1/4 or 3/8 plate that shock mount or that spring mount is, and have like a really solid spot for all this stuff to mount to. Cool, these things are becoming the real deal. Seems like that can probably come off of there. Here we go, moment of truth. I should be able to wiggle break these off. Everything's in different planes, which is good. I think we're good to just yank on this thing. Here we go. There we go. Haha! There we go. Ugh. Okay. We got both the sliders off. These things get pretty complicated by the time you weld all the stanchions on them, the kickers, and gusset them and do all the things. And again, part of the reason these things end up being strong is that all the tubes are not totally in a line. I've got some that are kind of aiming down and some that are kind of aiming up, and that just sort of helps triangulate this whole thing so that it's stronger in the truck. Stay put. I've got most of these tubes welded almost all the way around, but there were all these spots where the pinch weld was really close, so I've got to go finish those. And then a couple of these gussets I added in. I was just kind of like hoping for the best with the MIG welder up there, and I definitely need to clean those up and finish weld them. Let me grab the welder and make all that happen. I got the sliders all finished welded and sanded down all the like weld berries and things like that, and now I've got a little bit of masking tape going on. Got tape right where it's all going to weld to the chassis, and then I put some tape in the spots where I'm going to end up having to weld the exocage to it as well. So I think we're pretty good to go ahead and start primering this. I'm going to use this Poppy's Patina 2K primer sealer. It's an epoxy primer basically. I'm going to use that on this first. That'll seal this bare steel really well. I don't need like a high build primer, so this stuff should be pretty good. It should bite in really well. And we'll do the primer. We'll probably paint these things like a basic black. Here we go. Let's weld these things to the truck. It's Friday morning. I'm a little behind schedule, but that's kind of normal. Let's see if we can get these things kind of like propped up in their spot. Figure out how to make this go as smooth as possible. I think I can use the vice grip trick again. At least I can try. So I painted these things last night and they turned out pretty good. It's just sort of it's a process doing all this. Holy cow. but it's mainly just so that we end up without a ton of like unpainted sections. The paint that I put on, I don't expect to be like the end-all be-all paint job on them. And I left sections unpainted, like where the sliders or the cage is going to tie in and where they weld to the body and frame and stuff. So hopefully I did enough prep to make it to where this stuff isn't a ton of back and forth, but we'll find out. The driver's side one is all welded up and done. Now I'm just kind of, whoa, flashed myself. There we go. Now I'm just kind of getting this last little gusset on the passenger side. All right, both sliders are on. Let's get this jack stand out of here and let that thing chill out for a second. Look at that, sliders are on. They're supporting themselves. They're all gusseted up. It's time to start building a roll cage for this thing. About dang time. I've got a few ideas on kind of how I want to lay this out. Obviously, I want to do a tube that goes up through here and fits behind the fender, and then continues up the A-pillar, and then we'll end up coming to the back here and we'll have two tubes down the side, a B-pillar and a C-pillar tube. So I guess I'll grab a couple pieces of tubing and start kind of laying out a rough shape, kind of get the feel for the bender again. It's been quite a while since I did a bunch of tube work, so bear with me, I might be a little rusty on all this. There we go, the first portion of this exocage is tacked in place. I just did a pretty simple tube, cut a piece at 30 inches long, put a 40-degree bend in it. I actually like air hammered the corner a little bit so that I could tuck all this in just a little bit more. Got it tacked in place, and this is sort of my starting point for the rest of this A-pillar and roof to tie into. I've just kind of got it tacked in right now with a tack here and here so that if I need to take this thing back off, I can, in case I need to like cut it down lower or sleeve it or add a gusset to it or whatever. I always try to grind the little razor edges off of these. Try to make a habit of doing that right away just so that I don't end up cutting my hand on the tubing. This was a pretty simple bend just because I was able to just put it right to the end of this little clamp on the Rogue Fab bender. So I don't need to like have a bunch of crazy measurements to get the two to match. Hook some air up to this bad boy. And I'm going to bend this to 40 degrees. We're back out here. I ended up coming out and taping off all the glass. It's super common to do one of these projects and forget to do it, end up getting welding splatter, grinding sparks, and burning up the glass. So I taped all that up so that we don't have problems. And now it's time to fit this tube onto the passenger side. Basically, I've got it bent and I've got a notch started. I need to come in here and notch this little seam out to get a little bit more clearance and get that tube even farther in. And then on the other side, I actually hammered the corner in on this little bottom of the rocker, and that allows that tube to sit in even tighter. So all these little things seem small, but they add up to hopefully a cage that looks cool and isn't, you know, sitting way off of the truck. Make sure you got your earplugs in because this thing gets loud. I'm going to use the air hammer to knock that corner in a little bit. I only have a chisel, or I only have a pointed bit, but I found that if I put a flange nut over the end of the pointed tip, I can kind of hammer on this without it punching holes in it. Ha! That turned out great. Check this out. I moved back over to the driver's side. I had pulled this tube off so that I could paint it. And then I was like, you know what? I think I should figure out like a landing pad area for this upper portion of the cage. I had thought about trying to dive a tube in like so and intersect with it. I've thought about ways to intersect this way, and that's kind of what I'm thinking I'll end up doing, is intersecting this tube basically like right here. I'm gonna end up making a plate that like welds over the top of all of this and gussets back into the body, so it'll be tied in like through this A-pillar up onto this inner fender structure. It's gonna be pretty stout, and that done right should give me like a perfect little landing zone for a tube here that's gonna end up going up and over the body. So I think the next step is actually to bend up a tube and see if I can get this angle right here and a rough landing zone here and kind of start figuring out this exocage. Gonna be rad. So into tube is 26. I need to grab a little notepad to keep over here just to keep up on all this stuff. Let me grab my little angle finder and my air. Let's go to town. The tube that I bent in the last clip is back there. It's gonna get used for something else. I ended up doing it again, made a little bit longer leg, went with 40-degree bend, and then check this out, I duplicated it. And then I also kind of figured out the bend here, and then another kick at a roll, and it drops down. And look at that, this one's gonna drop right where, it's gonna basically intersect right where this wants to live as well. So we've got like our two tubes. Our two tubes are basically like wanting to drop into the same spot. I've got a good angle up top. It's obviously tight. I mean, it's resting on the body here and here and here and here. When I do this for real, I'll bump it off the body just a little bit, but yeah, I've got the angle kind of going right. It's sitting outside of the body just about where I want it. The door will clear. And then with a little bit of just fine tuning throughout here, I'll have it to where the trim around the windshield and the glass could still come out. I'm making pretty good progress, but I had to like take a break for a minute and ran to the post office. I got some stuff in the mail. Had a fan send me a shirt from Oregon. Didn't say his name, but I appreciate it. My home state, I was born in Oregon. And then this guy, Chris, out of South Dakota, sent me a whole box of Wild Dutchman sunflower seeds. This is absolutely wild. I guess he lives in the town where these are made. So he went and got me a variety pack. Spicy cheeseburger, cheddar dill, flamin' bacon. Are there some barbecues in here? A bunch of originals. Oh yeah, there they are. Open pit barbecue. If you like sunflower seeds, you got to try Wild Dutchman's. They're super good. I talked about them on an earlier episode when I was driving across country. I make it a point anytime I cross country to stop and try and find these. So go check out Wild Dutchman seeds. Thank you guys for sending me stuff. I totally appreciate it. If you ever want to try and get a hold of me, that's the easiest way to do so. It's P.O. Box 1025, Mead, Washington, 99021. Make it out to Dirthead Dave or the Dirthead Shed, and I should be able to get it. I check that mailbox about every week and a half, so hopefully these weren't sitting there too long, but they'll be good, and I appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. Look at this, though. We're here to build a roll cage around the outside of a truck, and we're kind of getting it. It's I just finished sanding this guy down and getting the fitment here and getting that leg in the right spot. Got the fitment around the body pretty good. I think I want to put just a little bump down in the back of this so that the cage kind of has a little bit of a crown to it. I think it'll make it look better. And then we're getting close. I need to make those little plates here still and tack these things in, but yeah, it's finally taking shape. This is rad. All right, more bending, cutting, and grinding. Thanks for the sunflower seeds and the shirt. After grinding the plate all up, I've got it put back up here on the cab of the truck. It rests nice on the tube and fits up on that fender plate really well. I've got one tack on it or two tacks on it right now. I'm gonna weld it kind of as much as I can with it tacked to the truck. Then I'll pull this whole thing off and we will weld it more and probably add like a little filler plate to these sides. That'll just make this whole thing extremely strong. So this guy is gonna go like so. Now when I go to weld this in, I'll get all this surface area onto that bracket, plus have a big landing pad for the tube to sit on. All right, I think this thing's ready to go back on the car. Truck, Jeep, SUV. The old tack welds line right back up and make it pretty easy to get this thing in the right spot. There we go. Check it out. After probably 2 hours of messing with this thing, fitting it, going side to side, back and forth, sanding a little bit here and a little bit there, I've got it right where I want it. It's like totally symmetrical, off center line here. We've got the same gap on the A-pillar, same gap here. This thing is looking sick. I think I'm gonna throw a little more tape on it in a couple spots just so it doesn't move. And then if we throw a bar across the back, then I feel like at least this thing's gonna be kind of locked in place. So rad, so much work. Holy cow. I'm not an exocage fan and I kind of like how this one's coming out, so this is good. I grabbed one of the cut-off pieces of tubing we had. This one's like 57. I need this tube to be 43 3/4 from inside of notch to inside of notch. And I want to throw a little bit of a bend in it because I want it to kick down and back a little bit just to get around that third brake light. So I came in and I'm going to start my bend about 18 inches off center, put a little kick on each end of this thing, and then we'll notch it and hopefully it all turns out good. I'm just kind of winging it as far as the amount of bend I want to do, but I'm not going to do a whole lot, I know that. I almost screwed that up. Let's see, 22 5/8, 22 and just over 5/8. Close enough. Let's notch it. Notch it. I need to hook up the ameribrade. Now I just got to kind of try and get the angle similar on this side. Let me get something here that I can use to get the distance exactly the same. Okay, we're one shifter base apart. Let's just give it a stare from here and see if we like it. Kind of funky how we dipped under there for the light, but I like that you can still see it. The next one will have a crown up a little bit to go over the roof of the roof skin, but I think this will be cool. It's definitely going to give it a little bit of dimension. Let's go ahead and burn this in. Looking good. It's Monday morning, I'm still plugging away on this, And I'm gonna do the spreader bar across the windshield right now. Just trying to make this cage as stylish as can be, you know? And strong. It'll be strong. That's no doubt. These ones get really tricky to notch because we're, well, trying to drop this tube in here, have it look about like that, but it's notching into a tube that's kind of going this direction and in the middle of a curve. So it gets kind of challenging. I think first thing I'm gonna do is find center line on the tube and mark it so that I can at least figure out where this thing really needs to live. I'm gonna give myself a little bit of wiggle room because I wanna be able to sort of like fit it down here and then move it up and cheat it up into place. As long as I don't cut it too short, we're good to go. I got one side cut and just did a quick little chop saw notch with it. And now I've marked the other side. We can cut it. Throw a little stick under there just to keep a little gap. This tube I've gone back and forth and I've like notched and fitted and notched and fitted. I even went and I threw a tiny, like a 5-degree bend right in the middle to get a little more crown out of it. I've got it to where it's just past the windshield trim, so that can still come out. Even the gap, like I have just enough gap here at the body to where it's not gonna be like rubbing and squeaking on it. I think it looks killer. All right, it turns out every tube on this cage is gonna be challenging. I've got this tube sort of started for this back, I guess, C-pillar area. Trying to get from that stanchion that I put in there on the rock slider up here, up to the roll cage top. And I'm gonna try to kick it in like just in front of where that back tube intersects, and that will give me my line along the back window, like right on. So this is just a 50-inch tube, 50-inch cut piece. I put a 27.5-degree bend in it, and I'm like, I've got to get it tied in to the cab up here, which is really tight. So this has to go in 1 3/4 inches here, but my gap right here is only, I don't know, 1 inch. So I've got to figure out how to get this all to like fit tight, get to there without like crashing into the body and looking good all at the same time. The other hard part is right here. This part of the body I'm already touching. I kind of need to kick the bottom in a little bit to drop it down, and then I'll end up having to fit that and then kick the top in to fit up there. So this one's going to be some challenge, but I'll get it figured out. We're close. We're just not there yet. There we go. Got my outside of that marked. Figure out where I want to start a bend here and probably only go about 8 degrees or so. Let's go see what we can come up with. Come on out of there. Okay, let's just say we're going for that. Now we're talking. That's good. I was able to get this thing to kind of match the other one. Check this out. Check it out. Look at this thing. We've got this fitting super nice. Just tons of time going back and forth to the tube notcher and the grinder and fitting this thing all awesome. And I've got it to where it's landing right there on the cage where I want it, on the roof. It follows that B-pillar like perfect and drops right onto that tube. That works super well. Looking at it from here, it's like, you know, super tight, super tight, super tight. The only thing, I've got a little bit of a dip here where the belt line of the truck goes in, and it's like a little bit of a aesthetic thing. But overall, like, this thing's looking sweet. I'm gonna go ahead and start fitting the other tube so that they both match exact before I tack anything together. And then we can work on that B-pillar. This is a lot of work, but it's turning out, that's for sure. Here's that B-pillar tube. I've got a little bit more gap here than I really want, so I may take just a tiny bit of bend out of that, and then we're actually hitting the body up here. And on the other side, I actually already got past this point, and I ended up having to sort of like relief and sort of hammer in this section of tube so that it gets around that crown and the body. These are all things that seem like more work than it's worth, but I'm ending up with a cage that's pretty cool looking and functional. And if all goes well, my buddy John is going to be super stoked with this thing. Here we go. This is just my regular bearing press. And I'm going to take this tubing and throw it in here. It's actually got some windows on the sides of the press so that it has a spot that it can pass through. And we're just going to push down on it, just kind of take a degree or maybe 2 out of it. Not a whole lot, not enough to really damage the tubing, just to kind of relax it a little bit, you know what I mean? Yeah, just like that. As long as you don't try and overdo it, you never know that you even messed with it. You can usually get like a degree or 2 back out of it. This one I'm just trying to get it to where this tube pushes about 1/4 inch closer to the body of the truck. It's money. Man, it looks good. It looks really good. Sweet. I'm gonna go and sand that up, re-weld that, like those 2 little slits that I put into it, and we should be able to come back over and tack this thing in permanent. Yeah, man, that looks good. Just kind of created a little bit of clearance, and there we go. That tube is in place. Awesome. I can go ahead and tack this one in place. I'm going to mess with it a little bit, make sure I got the clearance I need for the door. But yeah, we're getting it. This one I used 1.5 inch tubing, and I notched it to 1 3/4, but I sort of offset the notch. So on this tubing here, it's going to kind of sit to the back edge of it. There we go. It's going to sit to the back edge of it and kind of give it a cool looking weld detail on the front side. This is going to look good. Put my magnifying glasses on so we can weld this up real nice. All right, we're really burning through the days now. Yesterday was really good though. Yesterday, like, got all these sides finished up. That was probably my most productive day yet on this. So today I want to get up here and figure out some sort of X brace on this roof. Whether I want to do like straight across or if I want to do a bar here first and then X to that. I'm not sure yet. But that's the plan. We're going to get the X brace or whatever bracing we're going to do up here done today, and then hopefully pull this thing apart and start painting it. Now, typically on an exocage, the most used part of these is usually up in this A-pillar area. It's really common to like kind of tip into a tree or a rock, and you end up kind of using this like a rock slider almost. So I definitely want to transfer pressure from like that front corner to the back corner. And I've got this tube that drops down on the side is kind of like in the perfect spot. So I could probably do just a straight X brace there, and that'll strengthen this thing like when it's jarring or hitting trees or whatever. I also want to throw a tube from here to here. But you can see here, if I go straight across with this and I have a junction here and then I get short little tubes that end up having to join in here, that's going to be kind of counterproductive. So let's say, I'm just kind of going through this all in my head. Let's say we go like so. Throw this tube in first, and then maybe that's center line, maybe we get to here, and then here. Then I just have one junction kind of node in the middle. And rather than we're making basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of tubing that fit this, rather than trying to make, it would end up being like 2 extras, so it'd be like 7 pieces if we go the other way. All right, I think I made up my mind. Let's do this crossbar tube first. I'll get that into place, and then we can just join to it. That'll be that should be the way to make this happen kind of quick and easy. I've said quick and easy a bunch, but nothing yet has been quick or easy. Let's just get to work. All right, the back half of this X is made. Now it's time to just go and make the other 2 for it. I'm going to pull a couple measurements, and hopefully this part goes pretty quick. The back took probably an hour to get that made, so let's keep moving forward on it. Kinda close. Kinda close. Cool, yeah. More sanding on this corner. That'll draw it down into the pocket a little deeper. And it should kind of close up that gap there as it does it. I'm just going to keep working this end. I wasn't happy with that first one. It had too much bend here and was kicked up too high. I didn't like the look of it. So I broke out another stick of tubing and fixed the problem. Now I've got to get this one fit as best I can, and we should be done here pretty soon as far as tube fitting and stuff goes. That's kind of the process though. You just keep plugging away until you get what you want. So you're gonna go in. It's a tough one. Oh, come on. One more little sanding session and this guy's going in. Try not to wipe out getting off of this truck. Coming on up. Oh, it's so close. So close. I don't want to cut that tube out. I'm going to have to sand a little more off the bottom of one of these than I really want to, but it shouldn't be so much that it creates like a big gap. Final fitment, here we go. This is it, this is the one. Just so close. One more little buzz. There it is, this is the final fitment. The last one, I was just joking. It's like right there. Ha! That's it. Let me just double check and make sure my X looks like a proper X. Holy cow, that was some work. I want to get some quick shots of this before it comes off. It's going to be easier to see how much work was involved with it being just in bare tubing. It looks good. Definitely some work. I really like this back tube, how it kicks back and down so you can still see that third brake light. I think the last of the fab work I need to do is just put the end caps in here and call that done, but I think I'll do that with it off the truck. Whew, I'm exhausted. This has been a ton of work. And it's pretty rewarding, but man, it is. I think I'm 7 days into this thing so far between sliders and cage. We haven't even pulled it off to paint it yet or fit the fenders back on. What a wild one. All right, I'm gonna start cutting these tack welds, and we'll lift this upper cage off, lift these sides off, and finish weld and start our paint process. This part should be pretty fun too. Come off of there. All right, one side. All right, the cage is off. I can go ahead and finish weld all the bottom sides of all these joints, which is awesome. And then we'll figure out the paint process. The side pieces are over here. We're like moving along. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the extra off of the ends of the tubes here so we can cap them off. Cool. All right, the welding's all done and the ends are cut short, and we're gonna go ahead and throw these end caps on it. These are from a friend of mine at Machine Head Racing. His name's Bruce, and he's making these end caps. They're actually pretty cool. They're a bottle opener as well. There's like a little lip machined into the guy's mouth. Pretty cool. The details are all pretty fun. There we go. This thing's all like scotch brighted and cleaned. I went and had some dinner, and now we're back out here in the shop. I'm gonna get some epoxy primer going on this. The goal in this cage is to kind of like make it blend in with the truck, so I'm gonna end up shooting it with the stock. I'm gonna color match it. It's gonna be that dark charcoal gray. Here we go. Yeah. I guess we're just doing this. Tubing's also really hard to paint just because so much of the paint just ends up on the ground. Let me get the side pillars busted out, and we'll move on to the next step. Here we go. We got some base coat mixed up. This is Omni color match to the truck. The customer, my friend, brought it with him when he dropped off the truck. So we got good base coat to go on here. I've got a little bit of hardener mixed in with it just because I want to be able to like do some touch-ups. You'll see that here in a little bit. Let's go spray this cage down. You know what? Painting tubing is super hard. I am like 2.5, 3 coats into this, and I went and grabbed my trusty flashlight. There's still spots, like this whole back edge is like barely covered. It's wild, even the whole front edge of that. I painted that tube like 3 times now. I'm gonna go over this one more time with some base coat, and all right, everything's in position, ready to get cleared. I've got this Poppy's Patina flat out matte clear coat. It's been sitting for a while. Last thing I painted with it was a bicycle, and it turned out really good, but I want to stir this up really good and make sure all that flattening agent is suspended in the clear coat. That way it gets the finish that it's supposed to have. Let's do this. Let's put some clear on this. Lock it in. I gotta get busy. It's already midday on Wednesday. I missed hot rod night because I was working on this yesterday. That's not acceptable. I also worked on my dang birthday. That was way back on Sunday. Let's finish this thing up. Let's see how this is shooting. Alright, here we go. Try to hit the easy stuff first. Oh, this is rad. My feet are going to be a clear coaty mess Oh my gosh, this is cool. Why does it seem like I'm getting better coverage with the clear than with the base? Am I for real, or is it, am I gonna go back and find out that I didn't hit like half the spots of the tubing with clear? First wet coat is on there. Ah, it looks so cool. Stoked that I'm going through this extra work to make it happen. I'm gonna go shoot these guys next. And then we gotta take a break for a minute, let this tack off. Check it out. I was able to get my wife and a kid to come out here and help me set the roll cage back on the roof. Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that I took the time to like paint the thing at least better than rattle can black. It should hold up for quite a while. Let me grab those side pieces and we'll prop this thing up, see how it looks. Just like that, puzzles back together. Check that out. Not bad. Those little end caps turned out bitchin'. And yeah, I've just got this, basically I need to sand a little paint here. I didn't mask it off good enough, but yeah, we'll get these tacked in place and then lift it up, finish weld it, touch it up, call this thing a done deal. See if I remember how to weld today. I've got each of these tacked in 3 little spots. Hopefully they don't move around on me too much, but we're just kind of having to go for it. Yeah, see how much I boiled the paint up here? I knew that was going to happen. Cool. All right, let me go weld the other side, make it things. There's been so many like tack it on, cut it off, tack it on, cut it offs. It's cool to finally like finalize it. I left this primer in the fridge overnight and it totally worked. That's like a trick I learned from an old guy a long time ago. If you don't want your paint to catalyze, throw it in the fridge, and it worked. I'm gonna throw some primer in the little gun here. I've got the top of this stuff all welded and kind of prepped so I can blast the little primer on there, a little paint, a little clear, set this thing down, and then do the final welding down low. I've said it 100 times, but we're finally reeling it in. They say like when you're blending edges or feathering in paint like this, you definitely want to like do really light coat, just so you don't like put it on too wet and have a reaction with some other paint down below. So I'm just kind of just barely dusting any on here and hoping for the best. The trick with the primer in the fridge might not have worked. I ended up having to put the heat lamp on here to get this stuff to cure whatsoever. But we've moved past that. I threw away the paint that was in the fridge and we mixed up some fresh. So it's time to just touch these up. Let's see here. There we go. I'm gonna kind of try and keep it to just like a light dusting and let that tack off. And then I'll come back and dust it again. We'll hit it with a little clear coat and then we can drop this thing down and weld it. Can you see, did I get the back side of that? Try there. All right, I shot the clear. This thing's all kind of blending together and doing its thing. Pretty cool. Like, you can't totally tell that I just welded these things separate and like blended the paint. Stoked. I'm gonna pull that block of wood out. We'll drop the cage down and I'll get these joints welded down here. Remember, don't step on the mat because that thing's soaked in gear oil and you'll wipe out like I almost did the other day. Wow, that thing's really, oh my God, that's heavy. About lost a finger. All right, that's where that lives. Let's weld it in place. Forward on that guy while I tack it. Go all the way down here in the bottom. Right there. A little less. Right there. It's holding itself on the car. Look at that. Look at that. You can shake it. I'm going to weld these up. I got to get all the way around these and make it look awesome. And then I can celebrate. This bottom part I might just do like rattle can and just kind of re-clean up these sliders. Cool. All right, I'm going to weld this junk. What do you think, Jesse?
I think it's pretty good.
Jesse's helping me out. He came by to say hi, and I was like, hold this camera. Don't put a welding helmet on and watch this. It's working out pretty good for me. See if I can get this one buzzing in there. It feels so cool to be like burning this thing in and calling it done. Been out here in the shop this morning just trimming up these fenders and getting them fitted back on the truck basically. Just a little bit of work with a sander and tin snips and fitting it on and off over and over again, getting this to have the right amount of clearance. Turning out pretty cool. We've got the clearance for the lower one here and the fender looks super good on there. I do dig the way it looks like with the stock sheet metal, like it doesn't have tubes and stuff all over it. So this is pretty cool. This little diving through the front fender is probably one of my favorite features on an exocage when you can get it to like flow like that. I'm gonna go ahead, finish trimming up the other one. We'll paint these little sections, touch up the rock sliders, pull off the tape and paper, pull this thing outside and see how it looks. There we go, it's out of the shop, looking good. Super stoked on how this thing's turned out. It's not on big wheels and tires yet, but it will be. I think this one's gonna end up on trail ready creeper beadlocks and 37s. It looks good. It's got an exocage on it, but it's not like blaring at you being like, hey, check me out, I'm a beat up rock crawler. I think building the exocage on this thing while the truck is still pretty nice before it's totally beat up, not a bad move. It's gonna be a good one for the long term. It's gonna end up with big tires on it. It's got that FJ80 axle and a Toyota Tundra axle. It'll have low gears and lockers, and it should be a really cool rig in the long term. I think that's going to be it for this Dirthead shed. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a ton of work. I mean, it was in the shop for close to 2 weeks. It was, in my mind, it should have been a faster job, but that isn't always how it works. So stoked to have been a part of it though. This truck's going to be around for a long time. And hopefully these rock sliders and this roll cage are there for the long term. I think we made a pretty cool rig here. Thanks for watching the Dirthead Shed. We'll see you guys next week.